Hello and welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for international business information. My name is Tim Smith and our guest today is Dr. Rumintha Wikramasekera. Rumintha is an associate professor in international business at Queensland University of Technology. His research is focused on identifying the dynamics of the internationalization process of SMEs, and he is published in many research journals. He is co-author of the popular textbook Global Business Today, Asia Pacific Edition, and has won numerous teaching awards. In addition to his research, Rumintha's contribution and leadership role in teaching has been recognized by many international tertiary institutions and government agencies, such as the Australian Federal Government's Office of Teaching and Learning. In this interview, Rumintha will draw from his many years of experience to talk about preparing readily employable business students for today's global marketplace, as well as his research in the internationalization process of SMEs. Rumintha, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, to begin with, you've been widely recognized for your innovative and creative teaching methods. Could you tell us a little bit about your approach to teaching and why you feel it's more important to bring the real world in addition to the many things you bring into the classroom?
My methodology is very, very simple. I ask my students what they need. So I get wonderful feedback. And I must confess, I attribute my many achievements to the wonderful students I had. All the brilliant ideas that I had actually came from them. They made suggestions, and I took them on board, and I implemented them. We need to prepare our students for the real world because that's where they'll be working. We can't be insulated in ivory towers, and I know many universities don't do that anymore. They do focus on preparing the students for the real world. So by asking and collaborating with students, I see them as partners in the learning process. They come with plenty of knowledge that we can tap into, and they have wonderful networks that we can tap into as well. So I put it down, my success, to my students, the wonderful students that I've been very fortunate to have.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. What's the core competency or skill set that you think is most important for your students to have in order to lead a successful career in international business?
In terms of international business, I think it's an understanding of culture. We can't understand every single culture on the planet, but at least an awareness is very, very important. In a business setting, you can get everything else right, but make a cultural blunder and things can go wrong. So be receptive to new ideas, learn about culture. It is, after all, about lifelong learning. And learning takes place when we are out of our comfort zone. When we are within our comfort zone, we don't really learn. So it is a good idea to experience something new. A little bit of culture shock is not a bad thing. And be open and receptive. And the other thing that I do tell my students is look after your health. It doesn't matter whether you're doing international business or business. To achieve success, one must maintain their health.
Okay, thank you. In addition to your teaching accolades, your research on the internationalization processes of SMEs has also garnered attention. Could you share with us how your research has come to inform your work with students?
If I may take a step back, the reason for looking at small to medium-sized enterprises is that if you look at the largest firms in the world, even the Fortune 500 firms, they have a lifespan of about 40 years. An average American or an Australian will live twice as long. So we need to be mindful that the incubators for the next large firms are the small to medium-sized enterprises. Think about the many large firms now. They were little firms about 20, 30, 40 years ago. So we need to be very mindful about the next set of firms. The other thing is, sometimes we underestimate how important to the economy small to medium-sized enterprises are. I think even in the United States, they constitute about 60-70%. In my own country, small to medium-sized enterprises actually contribute about 90% to our economy. That's where the jobs grow. After the global financial crisis, most of the jobs were created within small to medium-sized enterprises. And let's not underestimate the fact that we have some very, very creative, smart students, and I've been very fortunate to encounter them here at IU. And many of them can go on to actually create their own small to medium-sized enterprises rather than thinking about working for someone else. So I think my research is bringing that real-world aspect to the classroom again. It is where the jobs are created. And ultimately, our success as academics is measured by our students getting good jobs that they enjoy.
Indeed, that validates the relevancy of the education that they're engaged in. And as you said, and what I appreciated was the two-way exchange of information. You're sharing, they're learning, they're sharing, you're learning. Thank you, Rumintha. I appreciate
You're very
that.
welcome.
Thank you. There's a growing awareness of SME internationalization since the global financial crisis, as you mentioned. Could you share with us some of the trends you've observed in the SME sector during the recent years, and how do you think these trends will impact your students as they enter the global marketplace?
I think SMEs are very nimble. They're able to react to the marketplace much better than the larger firms. They have a certain amount of inertia. So small to medium-sized enterprises actually can react very quickly to market trends, both domestically and internationally, and that is very, very important. And they do look after their employees, I think, reasonably well. Another very important aspect is that small to medium-sized enterprises, when they internationalize, maintain their headquarters in the country. So if you have an Indianapolis firm, they will tend to export rather than actually going for foreign direct investment. So the net benefit is far greater because you maintain employment in your own country, in your region. You bring in those profits back home, you pay the taxes back home. So if you think about the small to medium-sized enterprises, their net contribution is far greater.
That's great, thank you. And Rumintha, thank you so much for joining us in Bloomington, sharing with our students, and for coming in and sharing with me today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here.
That's all for this edition of Cyber Focus. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any comments, suggestions for future topics, please let us know at CIBER, that's CIBER, at indiana.edu.